When we're at sea, this is what our table will look like. But when we're at anchor, this is what our table is going to look like. So what used to be the bottom of our table now will be at top of the table while we're having dinner. So one thing I'll have to do is fill all these holes. And I already know from experience I'm not going to find any decent wood fill here in the Dominican Republic. So I'm going to make my own. I got some fairly fine, fairly coarse mixture here of sawdust. So we're going to use glue and a little bit of wood dust. And we're going to make our own wood fill that'll be a pretty close match to this. So we're just going to goop some on there. And I'm just going to use my nice trusty little chisel. Got this bit of wood fill now. And we're going to jam it in there as best I can. Right now it's the end of the day, so I can leave this to dry. It's okay if I don't get it perfect. I'm just trying to get it in there as deep as I can. And then if I got to, after I've given it a good sanding, I'll add a bit to it. This isn't really a seam anymore, like that's already been previously filled. These are the holes from how this was mounted on here. Those are the hinge holes right here, with the hinge holes, and this was the support. So there's 4 little holes that support this table, which are there. Which over the years, I think it's been shifted a little bit here and there to adjust it, because sometimes it's just not exactly level. I've had to adjust it before. So this is the same, if you've seen what I did on our main cabin when we redid that back wall with all the teak wall. This is how I had to do the wood fill. I did buy some wood fill and the stuff was no bueno. And then the next time I went to use it, read the label a little bit better, and it literally says no painting, no finishing, no sanding. So it's basically the worst wood filler I've ever heard of. Once I get those hinges perfectly mounted, I'm going to do another batch like this and just make sure that that's perfectly sealed. I don't want to see any gap at all. Only I'm going to notice something like that, but problem is I'm going to notice something like that. I want to see completely tight fit of that metal against this wood. So my next step now is, and this is only temporary, installing these hinges. One important thing here is to make sure that these hinges are parallel with each other and flush to the back of the table. So to do that, I'm just gonna line them up with this piece of a combination square. I've already shaved just a hair off of this just so I can straighten it out just a little bit, and with that in place, it's pretty tight fit right now and it's perfectly flush. I'm just gonna use this little screwdriver I got and a hammer, and I'm going to set a center point where these screws are all going to be. Better yet, I think I should mark those with a pencil and remove it. Alright, sharpened up this awl to get my center spot. Alright, there's a start of it. I don't have enough screws, so I just put these in temporarily so we can see how this is going to work out. Yeah, the hardware store here is not going to have stainless, but I'm still going to have to buy some temporary screws just for assembling it, and when I go out of town I'll pick up some more. But this is how she works. So when it shuts, the hinges are flush on this side. They do have a bit of play, which is unfortunate, but I guess when the two tables meet up here, they'll be up against each other. But that's just the play of the hinge. There's nothing we can do about that. When the table folds down, it comes down like that, and it's self-supporting, and that's why I wanted those special screws, because the table is literally hanging off of the screws, so you want something very strong for that. But this is how the finished table will be. It's going to close like this, and the other side will close this side, and when it opens up, we got a bigger table. So I'm going to grab some more screws, and we'll continue on this and then get the finishing going on. Now for some sanding. All right, what I gotta do here now, just like the other side, I'm gonna set these hinges in here. They're gonna become nice and flush here on the top. Now, I wanna set these in so that this edge here of the hinge is just slightly inset from the table. Reason being, when this folds down, there is a gap here about 1.5 millimeters, and if you have that gap all the way across here when the table folds down, it's going to have a tendency to sag a bit, because what you want is that wood on wood contact to allow the table to kind of rest on itself, or this part of the table to rest on this part of the table to take some of the load off of the hinges. That twisting force is literally pulling up on those hinges, and that's why I want those special screws that I'm hoping to get tomorrow when I go to Santiago. Because there's that pulling up effect, that's leverage. So you have leverage of this whole table pulling up on those screws. So I'm trying to get some very fat system screws that'll go into here so they have a lot of surface area but not going very deep. Until then, I'm just using these temporary screws that I bought here at the Ferreteria, which is the hardware store. These ones are just a little bit too long, but I did get a few shorter ones. They're very, very limited here. These are literally ones that they found on the floor and picked them up to sell. I think they've fallen out of boxes of hinges over the years. So I got 2 separate sets. These are just what I need, and these ones here are brass but just a little bit too long. But once I get them set in there, I can actually cut off all the tips of the ones I'm going to be using, because I definitely don't want them to poke through on the other side, which is a finished piece of wood. So I'm going to be setting these in here using this as an awl. This is just a screwdriver with a pointy end. I'm marking exactly where those centers are going to be. So these little screws, even though I cut the tip off and it's only a tiny little screw, it actually broke off inside the wood. And this is a soft wood, so it's not like there's any tension. The screw literally just fell apart screwing it in there. I can't move that hole because that's where the hinge has to go. It's already mortised out, so I'm gonna have to literally drill over top of that screw carefully and try to just shave this screw down because I need this hole. And take a break at that for a bit. There's a boat that was just heading right towards us and then turned away with the Q flag up. So it looks like they just came into loop round, but I'm not too sure where they're going. They're just kind of zigzagging back and forth. Alright, this little bit on my Dremel, kind of like that round drill bit, I don't know what they call that, reamer maybe. It's got like a reaming style tip on it. It ate right through that screw and removed it. Got the remainder of it down here if I can get it out. That's the tip of the screw right there, all mangled. Got to fill this hole up now with some resin so that I can drill a new hole through there. We're gonna first mortise out a bit of a cave underneath the lip of this wood so that I know that resin is gonna hold in there really well. Gonna use some JB Weld to fill this void now. Alright, while I'm waiting for that epoxy to dry, that was fixing the screw hole where the screw broke off. I still assembled it without that screw, and I can see that one of these boards, or all of these boards, are a little bit warped. When this table shuts, it's got this gap right here. You can see that? It's a pretty definite gap. So I'm going to try a little experiment here. I'm going to try to steam this wood. What I'm going to be doing is getting the wood nice and wet. I'm going to stick it in a bag, taped up, and let it bake in the sun for a good day with clamps on it, clamping them together. So if they are warped, at least they're warped together so it looks flat. So, first step, open this up. Alright, a little water in here, get all the wood nice and wet. Pretty definite gap right there. So I'm going to save half this water for after. Now I'm just going to pour the rest of this water right in here. Let this get nice and wet. Fold this bag over. It's all sealed up now. I'm going to clamp them, so I want to get to the position I want with everything lining up nice. This side's already flat, but just so I don't get a counter warp. So we're going to leave it like that now. right here to get nice and hot. Gonna go to Santiago tomorrow. In the meantime, this is just gonna bake in the sun as long as that hurricane expecting stays offshore of us. Don't expect it to come here. This place is too safe to worry about. My only worry is not getting enough daylight to get this thing nice and hot. It's already getting hot. Definitely a good experiment here. Stay tuned for next week and see how I unorb this table.
Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell so you don't miss next episode. Stay tuned and see you next week.